It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing William Penn's head women's volleyball coach, Coach Lauren Eldridge. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college women's volleyball?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had like a moment of like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life, but I think just growing up, I've always played some type of sports. My dad coached when I was younger, and then when I got to college, I was like, I don't know what I really want to do. I majored in sports management, so I think I knew wanted to do something with sports. Had a really fun college career, had great coaches, always had good relationships with my coaches. And so I was like, maybe that's something I can do and, support myself. Became a grad assistant after my undergrad years and haven't looked back since. And I mean, I don't think I'd want to do anything else, honestly. This is not really a job. It's pretty fun. So it's an easy day and it's kind of can do things on your own schedule. I've met really awesome people. So, I mean, I don't working with athletes all the time, different skills level is just pretty sweet job to have.
What was your time like going to Missouri Valley and getting to play collegiate volleyball?
Yeah, I was there for actually 5 years. Unfortunately tore my ACL my sophomore year. So I kind of had that unique experience. Not the best experience, but have to go through some adversity. But being an hour and a half away from home, I think it was a sweet spot to be at. So it was not too far, but not too close either. But we really built that program when I was there. We had our first 21 season my freshman year, and then my senior year we finished at nationals. We're in the conference championship, had back-to-back 20 plus win season. I think our first 30 plus win season. And it's pretty, cool to be part of a rebuilding program, started from the bottom and then made it to the top and made some history there too.
As a volleyball player, what was it like getting to put on that uniform and representing the college?
Yeah, I mean, I loved my experience there. So, just getting to play in the purple and orange, even though we had some crazy jerseys. But it was really awesome, just having that support and being a true athletic school. It was nice that we had that support from our other teams as well, and just, having family there at a lot of games. I felt good to put that jersey on, especially getting to go home, being 10, 20 minutes away and playing in a college from your hometown is pretty cool too. But it was really awesome, just being part of something special.
Getting into coaching, what was it like first coming to William Penn and being a grad assistant?
Yeah, first I was honestly scared because I'm only a year or two older than some of these seniors, and I actually played against these girls, just 6, 8 months ago because we were in the same conference, and a lot of them knew who I was, so that was kind of cool that they already had respect for me. But it was pretty unique. It was cool to go back to, my alma mater and play against them as a GA and be in front of family again. But it was a pretty cool experience and, kind of rebuild this program as well.
After your GA time, what was it like being an assistant coach?
After my grad assistant time,
Mhm.
yeah, so I actually got to skip that assistant coaching step. I went to be, I was a grad assistant for 2 seasons and then got my first head coaching job at Culver Stockton. So thankfully, I guess I missed that assistant coaching job step. But I mean, I felt pretty special because I'm a head coach at, I don't know, 23 years old, which is pretty young. And I also get to play in my conference. And I've been in this conference as a player, GA, and as a head coach. So it's kind of cool to see all the different aspects of this conference and where it's been from when I played and now. But it was a really cool experience. It was tough coming back to play against William Penn in my alma mater, but it was a really great experience.
At Culver Stockton as head coach, what were some of your biggest accomplishments?
Yeah, I took over. I started there in January of COVID year, so I had 2 months of being a normal head coach for my first time, and I got hit with that COVID year. And that was kind of unique, first year head coach and getting thrown COVID at you. It was a little tough, but being at Culver, I really got to figure out the ins and outs, and it's kind of you learn as you go. There's things you don't expect when you haven't been a head coach before. And by really awesome support from my AD and other coaches as well, because that place is a really good place to be a first year head coach. Everybody's probably in their first couple of years, and you do have some veterans as well, so it's a nice little balance. But the things they needed to be rebuilt, they've had a lot of coaching changes in the past, so that was one of those things. I'm trying to, gain the respect, create a positive culture, and trying to win more games than they have in the past, and just have some stability.
Coming back to William and Penn as a head coach, what was that like coming back?
It was a tough decision, because I also came back to our conference that I'd been in as a player and coach at Culver. Um, but it was really cool. It was like a full circle moment. Never thought I'd come back to William Penn as a head coach, to be honest. But it was meant to be. And the girls that were seniors my first year as a head coach, I coached them when they were freshmen and sophomores in college, and even recruited some of them. And I wasn't able to, fully coach them. So it was kind of cool to see them, as freshmen and finish out being their head coach as a senior. And they had really good senior years too. And I was like having that development, I already have relationships with them too. And it was easy to have that, coach personal relationship with a lot of them.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto that court for the first time at William Penn as a head coach?
Probably pretty unreal. I was like, is this really happening? But it was really cool. We have a really cool game atmosphere. I felt like I was at home. I feel like I kind of never left. And those 2 years went by fast, and I'd played in that gym, obviously on the other side as an opponent, and coming back to be, in the Golden Navy. Felt really good, and everybody was super supportive, and we had a pretty good home crowd for that first game, and I think my parents came out to watch. But it was just a really cool experience to kind of be back on that side of the bench.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach?
Yeah, it kind of depends. If we're at home, usually come in, get some more, finish up some film, kind of look at some stats of the other team. Maybe if they played the night before, watch some of that. I'm big on film, and I probably look too much into it and dive too much, even like up until game time, pregame locker room, just to make sure I don't miss anything on the scouting report. Just to make sure our team is prepared as well. Um, I have kind of like a ritual. I do have a Subway every day for lunch when it's a game day. So, I make sure I have my Subway sandwich that I have for lunch. Kind of have that routine down like I did when I was a player too. So get ready, come in, an hour and a half before a pregame locker talk, finish up a couple things, but I feel like that's probably, and then after the game, probably about a 20 or 30-minute kind of just relax in the office, kind of take the game in, win, loss, whatever it may be. Because we're coming off an adrenaline rush as well, just like the players are.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Yeah, so this year we're actually getting 15 teams compared to 13. We play against like Mount Mercy, Graceland, Mount Lamar, Missouri Valley, Culver, Stockton, Grandview is our big rival. When we call them that school in Des Moines, we don't really use their name. Um, Mount Mercy, Baker Park, Benedictine, a lot of tough schools. And I would say our rivals are Grandview. But I just have big games against them. And then Mount Mercy, I would say, is a big game for us as well.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Graceland comes to home versus going to Mount Mercy?
Yeah, our home crowd is pretty tough. Ask any colleges or any coaches in our conference, probably. Being 70 to 80% student athletes, everybody loves sports. And we have a really cool light show that we do in between sets and before and after the game. But we have a pretty rowdy crowd. Usually get yellow cards once or twice a year because of it. But it's just a great place to play, and especially when the game's going to be competitive, or maybe we've already played them once in the season and we're up 1-0 or maybe down 0-1. We know it's going to be a competitive game, but playing against Grayson is always fun. Hopefully we can get some more people in the rotations doing that. But when we play Mount Mercy, it's a pretty competitive game. We have gone to 5 sets a lot of the games the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, you just know it's going to be a battle, and those are the most fun games to play in is when, going to 5 sets, winning by 2 or 3. And those are the games that, we live for.
Of course, what is that away atmosphere like when going on the road?
Yeah, it's tough. It's obviously hard to win on the road in this conference, really just for any sport, not just volleyball, but we have to know that we treat it like our home court. the volleyball court is the same no matter if you're home, away, neutral. It's the same dimension, so we just have to play that and kind of play in the present, kind of tune everybody out. I also say, soak in that atmosphere and that energy too. You might think they're cheering at you, but use it as, some type of fire. Use it to fire us up and, to make them quiet is when we start winning, we start putting balls away, start blocking stuff. That's when we can get the crowd kind of on our side as well.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for the volleyball program?
Yeah, this culture, it takes a while to change things. It doesn't happen overnight. Doesn't happen in a season. We've definitely progressed, from my year one 3 years ago, and it's probably one of the best cultures here that has been in a long time. We have a great group of girls, a lot of personality, pretty funny group. But they mean business, and we're super competitive in and out of the gym, in the weight room, in the locker room, classroom. But just the culture that we wanted to build was that, we're a chosen family. We love each other, tough love, love tough. We all care for each other. We want to be genuine, not just kind of have that surface level. And as long as we get to know each other, it's easier to create that trust and that bond. And I think that'll go a lot farther than just being, the normal teammates.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes?
Yeah, recruiting process is different for everybody. I always say that to my recruits because, they get nervous if it's January and they're graduating this year, or maybe it's January and they're 2026, like a junior in high school. It's different for everybody. Everybody has a different journey. But for our process, we usually try to find you at a tournament. Maybe I find you on like a recruiting website. Usually starts with some type of text or an email, and then we turn into a phone call. And then after the phone call, as long as it's good on both sides, we invite you out for a campus visit. Hopefully be able to have an open gym with the team so you can meet the girls. So I'm only, like 20% of the team. You want to meet the team. They make up, all of them meet professors, see how we play. And then we kind of go from there. And one of the good things about NAIA is that we do have a JV and varsity team. And that's where you can develop skill instead of just, maybe sitting the bench for 2 or 3 years. You're able to still get playing experience, game experience at that JV level, and hopefully earn and develop to be able to be a varsity player.
As a head coach, what are some of the things that you look at in your players?
Yeah, I always say that my number one thing is going to be character and personality. I can teach you volleyball because I'm a coach. That's my expertise is, coaching and making you better at volleyball. But character and personality, kind of comes from within, kind of how you're raised, your experiences. And I'm not expecting, these high school girls coming in as freshmen to be the most mature, have the best time management, communication. I'm there to help you learn that, but you have to have a solid foundation as well. And also, if we have a bad egg or bad energy that comes in, that can be a cancer of the team. So we want to make sure we have a good, solid foundation there. So, just character and personality, how you talk to your parents when you come on a visit. I know they always see, like, when you go to big tournaments, we watch not necessarily what you do on the court, but how your actions and energy is on the bench, how you interact with your coaches, how you interact with your parents after the game. If you're polite to them, how everything goes like that. And so, we're looking at all the X, Y's, and Z's and not just the skill level.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen putting on that William Penn jersey for the first time versus the seniors putting it on for the last time?
Yeah, I tell them, it goes by fast. You feel like you're a freshman probably yesterday and then become a senior night or your senior year, your last spring season. Um, it's awesome, just kind of see that full circle moment, like I said earlier, and just kind of like that light bulb moment of like you didn't think you could ever be here, you didn't think you can manage, 3 or 4 years of volleyball. But look at you now, and you've increased your vertical, increased all these things on the court, but outside of it, most of the time, they're all more mature, they've gone through experiences that they've learned through, and they just grown up, and it's really unique, just being a coach that you can kind of see that in 3 or 4 years, because college is kind of where you find yourself. Everybody's changing, I feel like every year. And so it's just really cool to see them start from little babies is what I say, and like to be like grown women, and they're about to be full-time adults after this, and it's just a really cool experience to be a part of.
What is it like getting to see those seniors going on and playing professional volleyball or getting into coaching afterward?
Yeah, we've had a lot of girls that have gone into coaching. We have a couple girls that have maybe get done like professional back home. But just seeing them go coach, that means hopefully they got the good and the bad from me. They can balance what they liked and didn't like from my coaching style. But it's awesome. We had some club girls at club coach club this year. and they kind of saw the other side of everything, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't realize you have to say stuff 20,000 times for me to realize what it means." I'm like, "Yes, just patience." And it's really awesome, and especially see them be successful in, their coaching careers.
What have been some of the things you've been able to accomplish so far as a head coach?
Um, like obviously the wins, the losses, going to postseason for the first time, winning a postseason game, beating nationally ranked teams, having All-American, All-Conference players, really, just having them graduate at the end of the year and having jobs lined up before they get out of college is pretty awesome because, that means they're already set for after graduation. I know everybody's usually stressed about having a job, finding a job, making money, which I understand. That's part of being an adult. But it's just, having them see that, having them come back for alumni games is huge. And it just means that, they really did value their time at William Penn.
What are some of your future plans for the William Penn volleyball program moving forward?
Yeah, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, be in a conference championship, be regular season champions, maybe the top two, going to nationals is at the top of that list. There's ways to get there, being regular season winners, postseason, maybe get an at-large bid. And we have a really good group coming in this year, and so super excited for the potential of that happening in the next couple of years, and building off of what we've had in the past. So those are kind of some of the goals that we have going in the next couple of years.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year?
I would say soak it in and don't be scared. I know it's cliche to say, it's like you have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. You're coming in as a freshman, you might not know anyone. You might know one or two girls on the team that are, have reached out to you, but it's going to be a new environment. Soak it in and what you make of it. If you just sit in your room and don't do much outside of volleyball, it's probably not going to be the best experience for you. But just soak it all in, take advantage of being in college because you're not going to have this in 4 years. You don't get to live next to your best friend or make new friends because you have to be an adult and make money. So, soak in the college life, the student athlete experience.
What advice would you give those seniors that have aspirations of playing professional volleyball?
I'd say, go do it. You got to give it 100%, because you don't want to have those what ifs if, you're kind of half in, half out. If that's definitely something you want to do, go for it. Gonna have to train probably a little bit harder than you were at William Penn if you want to go do that. But we definitely have girls that have the capability to do that.
What advice would you give those players out there looking to get started into their coaching journey?
Yeah, any doors that are open, take advantage of it. Even if it's, small, it could be like the high school club level. Get into it because you never know. It's all about connections and who you know. Networking is huge. It's not always what you know, but who you know in this, in athletics. Well, I think that's kind of where I was able to get my first head coaching job, was just kind of who I knew, and I knew some coaches, and I knew coaches that knew other coaches. It's always network and take advantage. You're not going to get paid a lot in the beginning. That's just kind of how coaching is. And it's not about the money either. So, open that door, go through it. Maybe you're going to meet a different connection through that door, but always take advantage of anything that is, open.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to get started in building their own legacy?
Yeah. Stay present. We always get stuck in, like the past or the future of like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I could have done this, or hopefully do it this way. No two seasons are going to be the same. You have to kind of like soak in what you're given and be present. I know I've been sucked in it before, like, oh, we had a great year last year, we're basically the same team. It's not the same team. Everybody's changed, they've gone through things. Maybe athletic ability has changed, good or bad. But just be present and stay present with your team. And just small wins will compound into being big ones eventually.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program at?
Say that again.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program?
Yeah, we are on Instagram, WPU Volleyball. We have a Facebook page, and we actually just created a TikTok page this last month or two because we're trying to be, I wouldn't say TikTok famous, but the girls really want to be TikTok famous, so try to improve our video information. And we also have our Statesman Athletics website as well.
Thank you again, Coach Lauren, for your interview, and best luck in your future at William Penn as the head women's volleyball coach.
So thanks for your time.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.